Bam! Jason Waller here, True Underdog Podcast, top 3 entrepreneur motivational podcasts right now. And here's what we've got today. We're going to kick some ass, no pun intended. Today's guest is a professional Muay Thai athlete with over 50 professional fights and has fought the best from Thailand. His relentlessness was bred into him by his early childhood, fleeing in the middle of the night from Bosnia to reach safely in Serbia before immigrating to the United States at the age of 9. He followed his father's creation of opportunity and pursued his passion for fighting, as well as becoming an award-winning graphic designer while smashing his opponents. European-born, Thailand-bred, and American-freed to live to tell his tale today. With 37 wins, 23 losses, and 2 draws, please give it up for our guest, Ognjen Topic. How are you doing, my man?
How's it going, Jason? Thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, I'm excited. So listen, I mean, you're a badass dude. I mean, this is what you do. You go in, you kick ass, you ask questions later. I was watching some of the YouTube skits on some of your fights. That's the real deal. I wish I could learn to fight a little bit like that, but this is what you do for your life. This is what you're passionate about. But I want to start with your childhood, right? Escaping Bosnia. So what was that like? You know, the Bosnia War in 1992, and you fled with your family to Serbia, where you lived till 95. Talk to the listeners and viewers what that was like to escape Bosnia.
It was a very uncertain and hectic time. But something that I learned from my father is listening to your intuition and following your gut instinct. And we left literally on the last bus that was leaving out of Bosnia that night before sanctions were put up, and then, you know, there was roadblocks and things like that. And by then, nobody was allowed to enter or leave Bosnia. So we were very fortunate enough to be able to leave when we left. And that was all due to my father.
I mean, that's intuition so important in life skills, in business, obviously in fighting. I'm sure intuition kicks in for you. You know, you ended up, immigrating to America in 95, where your father was living and working in America, playing the immigration lotto. How impactful were your parents on your life? Share the life lessons you learned from your father early on.
I think they were extremely impactful. My parents never sat down and taught me or my sister the ins and outs of life. I just basically learned by watching how they were doing things, and that was basically my school. So, you know, my father, he hated debt. He would always tell me not to get into debt. I know, you know, he was striving not to have debt. He was always a hard worker. That's where I learned my work ethic, and not only my father, but my mother as well. And, they worked together, and they practically, when we were in Serbia, they practically built the house all by themselves. And that was just watching them, how they never had any complaints. And they never showed me and my sister that they were suffering.
That's so good to instill in your kids at such a young age that, you know, the life that you're in, you just got to be grateful that the sun's coming out and you're breathing, and they took the best of that opportunity. And, you know, they listened to the intuition. They took risks. I always say scared money don't make money, and you got to take risks in life. And your family did that, and it paid off. Now, I want to talk about your graphic design. We've got a lot of time to talk about your fighting career, which I want to get to in a minute. But, you know, back in high school, you began your design career around 2004. Talk about that, you know, and you graduated from William Patterson University. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so right before I was about to enroll in high school, I was coming up. It was a difficult time as well, because I had to make a choice. It was either to go into the high school in the town where I lived in, or step outside of that and go into a different high school, which was further away. But it was a technical high school, which offered different fields, and graphic design and art was one of those fields. And I knew that was going to prepare me for life quicker than, let's say, going to a regular high school. And then also the high school that I was at, a lot of the kids that I knew, they were all getting into drugs and alcohol, and I was already doing Taekwondo at that time, and so I was already just all about sports. So I made that choice to go into that technical high school, and I think that was one of the best decisions that I made. And throughout those 4 years, I was working on my craft, graphic design, which helped prepare me for college. But before then, I honestly wanted to be an oil painter. That was like one of my passions. I wanted to oil paint. But I sat down with myself, or not sat down with yourself, but I talked to myself and I asked myself, how hard did I want to work on being one of the best oil painters in the world? And the reason why I was asking myself these questions is because I wasn't able to waste any time, because I don't have enough time. I have to make the right decision now and then pursue that until I achieve the goals that I want to achieve. And so the answer to that was I didn't want to work hard enough. So that told me right away that it's not something that I was passionate about. And then the graphic design aspect was, I chose that because, obviously, I mean, everybody needs some kind of graphic design. I mean, the whole world is about ads and promotions and things like that. So I knew I was always going to have a job in that. And obviously it was still part of art. So I was still going to be happy doing that. So I chose graphic design. I went to college and, I was one of the best students there, and I was winning awards, and even in high school, I was winning awards. I was always striving to be the best that I can be. It wasn't necessarily to be the best in like the world or the best in your field. I just focused always on being the best that I can be, because if you're the best that you can be, that's going to automatically bring you up to that level of being one of the best, if not the best in the world. So if you just focus on being extracting all of the energy from what you can do to be the best today and hopefully tomorrow, then I think that's the way to go.
Ognjen, you just dropped major gems for people to listen to. Work on focusing on yourself. It's the small wins. What do you think makes you different from most people like you? What is it that you think that you were able to do that most people weren't doing when you were going to school to do graphic design or oil paint? And then let's get into the fighting.
That's a difficult question to answer, but I'll tell you from what people have told me about me, because it's difficult for me to look inward and then figure these things out. It's always much easier when somebody points it out to you. And so, a couple of the things was that I was extremely focused, and I was very disciplined as well. So when I became focused on one thing, nothing was going to get in my way. So, for example, when I first started, I know we're going to discuss the fighting a little later on, but when I first started fighting, my parents didn't allow me to do it because, it only made sense for them to bring me and my sister into America, and so that we can make something of ourselves by going to college and becoming either, the typical doctors, lawyers, or whatever the case may be. So to them, they looked at fighting as like the lowest level of getting paid. To them, it meant that you tried to work at this place, that didn't work out. You tried to work at this place, that didn't work out. Now you have literally no other choice but to put gloves on and fight for your money. So that to them was the lowest way of making money. So they didn't allow me to fight, but I did it behind their back because I was so focused about doing that. And I lied to them for such a long time. All up until one of my cousins saw one of my fights on YouTube. He called up my father. He told my father, and my father obviously lost his cool, and we stopped talking for like 4 months. And during this time, I'm living in the same house. So him and I are just walking past each other and just not saying a word. And that was because of our egos. I have an ego, he has an ego, so I'm not going to start talking to him. He's not going to start talking to me. Right, but eventually, after about those 4 months, we kind of just like started interacting again. And then he never brought up the fact that I was fighting. I never said anything, and we just left it the way it was. And then after that,
so let me ask you this. So in 2013, you quit your full-time job in order to focus on fighting. Was that when you were hiding it from your dad, or was it before then?
No, that was before then. So I'll get to that later part. But just to finish off on this quick story, as far as the focus goes and the discipline that I'm talking about, after I turned pro, I had maybe like 2 or 3 pro fights. And then I said, you know what? I cannot lie to them anymore because this is obviously a profession now. So I have to sit them down and tell them. So it was on our Christmas, the Christian Orthodox Christmas, which is January 7th. I don't know why I chose that day, but I chose it. So I sat both of them down, and I told them that I basically gave them an ultimatum. I said, you're either going to support me and let me do what I do, or this is the last day that you're ever going to see me. And I was 100% serious about leaving. That day, I had no plans of being able to live anywhere else, but I knew I was going to figure something out. I'll live in my car for a couple of days if I need to. And I was ready to leave right then and there. And I knew my mother was gonna succumb to my ultimatum because, you know, she's a female and she's more emotional, and so I knew that wasn't gonna be an issue. But my father, on the other hand, I really thought that there was a 50% chance of him saying, "Pack your stuff up and get out of my house. This is the last day you're gonna see me," because of the ego aspect. And you know, you have to understand that he was also a professional athlete as well back in Bosnia. He was a professional soccer player, but you know, that helped him make that decision to support me because he understood as well how much I love the sport, and so you know, that's what happened. But that's what I'm trying to say. When you make that decision to try to be the best that you can be in something, and then obviously that's going to lead you into being the best in the world, you cannot let anything stop you from achieving that goal. And that means people that I love the most in this world, which are my parents, and then, you know, my sister and my other extended family. So to me, that decision was extremely difficult to make, but I had to make it.
You know what I call that? I call that creating your own map. I have a chapter in my book. It's exactly that. You're not listening to the outside noise, whether it's family, whether it's a loved one, whether it's a peer,
right,
whether it's someone you don't like. You're controlling
right,
your destiny, and you stood up for what you believed in to the people you love most, and it ended up working out. I'm sure your intuition told you, you need to do this. This is something
yes,
you love, something you want to be a part of. So you're going to have to face that with the family, and it ended up working out. But that's called
right,
creating
absolutely.
your own map, my man. That's what it's about. Too many people out there are scared to do what they want to do. They do what they're expected to do. Go be a doctor, go be a lawyer, go be a teacher. Yeah, and those aren't bad jobs. But if you want to do something else, like you did, that's exactly what you did there. So during the period of 2014 to 2017, you became one of America's better known super featherweights as you became a Muay Thai Grand Prix title holder, Lion Fight World Champion, WBC National Champion, and WKA National World Champion. Bam, that's a lot of championships right there. Share with us some of the biggest life lessons that you learned along your fighting career.
Let me just go back to the other question that you had when I had to quit my graphic design job, and then I'll jump on those to answer that. Another obviously difficult choice that I had to make was to stop my graphic design career and then go on to Muay Thai. And in Muay Thai, there really is no money out of actual fighting. You have to get creative with how you're going to make a living in different ways. So I'm going from, you know, getting a pretty good salary a year from graphic design to making zero money. And that was all based on what you were just talking before, the intuition. And then I made that trip out to Thailand. And that's what that's what led me to the rest of those world championships, just by making that step. So that was very difficult to make, but that was also done out of the focus and intuition. Now, to go back to the other question, I think one of the biggest lessons I learned was just resiliency. I have some of my favorite fights are when I had to overcome something in the ring, and it wasn't really the title fights that I had. Although two of those fights were title fights, but there's some other fights that I had to overcome things in there where I was injured, and I just had a lot of aspects fighting against me. And then obviously you have the opponent that's trying to take your head off as well. So it was a lot of mental focus that was able to make me prevail and win those fights where I had something that I needed to overcome an obstacle.
Were there times that you felt like maybe you should quit?
Every single time you want to quit, because that's just a natural, innate human response. But the thing that makes you different, like let's say what makes an ordinary person from an extraordinary person, right there, it's not the fact that the extraordinary person doesn't feel the need that he wants to quit, or he doesn't feel fear, or he doesn't feel pressure. It's the fact that he's able to overcome those things by keeping a strong mental attitude, and that's it. So yes, I mean, there was just in my last fight, I got, if you've ever felt, or maybe your listeners, if they've ever felt how it feels to be hit in the liver, it's a devastating feeling. I mean, your body just wants to shut down. You can't breathe. It's very difficult to do anything at that point. And you need a minimum of like 20 to 30 seconds to recuperate. So you have to figure all that out in a high pressure situation where the guy's already attacking you and trying to, destroy you. So I got hit in the liver twice with the knee. And the first thing in my mind that pops, just fall down on the floor and quit. Because that's the easiest thing to do. It's the easiest thing to do. It's right there. It's available. But then the other thing pops into my mind when I promised myself that I would never let another man down me from a body shot. It's just something that, that's probably part of my ego as well. I just can't give another man the satisfaction that he put me down with a body shot, or something that I can actually control mentally, because the pain is there. But remember, the pain's not going to kill you. So it's just a mental obstacle that you have to get over. And when you do that a couple of times, especially in a high pressure situation, then it becomes easy. I mean, it's just like a regular response. You get hit, you know exactly what to do, and you overcome that.
Well said, man. Well said. I know you're dropping a lot of gems and people are picking this up. Let's talk about losing and how to deal with adversity. Everyone in life goes through struggles. They fall down, they lose. Maybe they don't get the job they want. Maybe they don't get the girl they want. Maybe their business closes, or maybe they get in a fight and in a single round in Thailand, you lost to the babyface killer, which was coined as one of his finest performances of his one career. Someone who's been through it all, share with us the coping mechanisms when dealing with such losses, and how do you bounce back and have such adversity?
Yeah, that was a difficult loss. But for me, what makes it easy if I lose a fight is the fact that I give 100% of myself every single time. So there's no regrets ever. So when I give 100% of myself every time, then I know mentally that I did everything, and then physically as well. So then instead of me sitting down and feeling bad for myself, and then just calling it right there, and then maybe either quitting or being down on yourself or getting depressed, all I had to do was look back at the videotape, which was again very painful to see. Look back at the videotape and see the mistakes that you made. And those mistakes were apparent to me that I made. And you go back to the gym and you focus on fixing those mistakes, and that's it. And the next time you fight, you're gonna either fix those mistakes and gain more confidence, or you may lose again. It's not guaranteed, but if you lose again, then maybe you fix those mistakes, but maybe you lost because of a different problem or issue. So then you go back and you fix those. So for me, it was always just about looking back at my mistakes and then fixing and seeing how I can better myself. So it was never like I never got emotional about any of my fights, and you can't get emotional because emotions are a weakness. It's not logical. It's irrational. So you cannot make decisions that are based on emotions. You have to think clearly and logically.
Well, I like to think, and you're a champion, a world champion multiple times. I like to think that, at least in my world, in business or coaching my kids or sports that I've played, and I've never done anything professionally. So let me start with that. But I feel like as long as, like you just mentioned, as long as I give it my all, or my kid gives it his all, or our team gives it 100%. I can deal with somebody beating me. I can't deal with losing. Meaning I lost
Absolutely.
on myself
Right.
or I beat myself. If someone defeats
Yeah.
me, but I gave it my all, they're the better person. That's the better team. There's nothing I
Yeah.
can do. I gave it my all. But if I beat
Right.
me, I have a problem. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not to say that losing isn't like it still doesn't suck. I'm sure you still didn't like to lose, but you're
Right.
okay with it because you know the mistakes that you made weren't like mental mistakes. It was just technical stuff that maybe you just had a simple little fault with, and you can correct those. Those are easy to correct.
Well, let's talk about work ethic of a champion. You know, mentality is everything to become a winner. You're a 3-time world champion with many accolades under your belt. You've already shared a lot of gemstones about your mindset, about going with your intuition, about your work ethic you got from your parents, about this whole thing, about your ego kicks in. Are there times, Ognjen, that you feel like you made the wrong decision? Do you ever have any regrets? Or how do you control that mindset of a champion to think that you've done the right things?
Yeah, there's no regrets in my life, and I never thought about if I made the wrong choice or not, because I made this one choice that's to be great at one thing, because I don't think you can be great at multiple things. I'm a good designer, but I'm not like, you know, one of the best in the world. I don't think I am, and you know that's subjective because it's design. But as far as fighting goes, I made that choice, and that's something that I love and I'm passionate about, and there's no regrets in that aspect. And then as far as the work ethic goes, I think that goes back down to, again, being focused and also just thinking about how much time you have. And for me, time was always my biggest enemy, and it still is, because I started the sport at 18, Muay Thai, and by that time, all the Thais they're already 10 years into the sport, and they've already amassed about 200 fights, because these kids start at about 8 or 9 years old. And so from 8 or 9 until like 18, they already have a very big career. Actually, some of them are already champions by that time. So I knew I didn't have enough time I didn't have time to make a lot of mistakes. So I had to just be extremely, extremely focused and constantly work at my craft. And I'm not saying like, you know, working hard all the time. No, I was trying to work smarter. By being focused and working on small, minute little details. I was studying a lot of film and seeing how these professional fighters move and how their timing evolves and how their timing works. And so I was studying a lot of that, and that's what truly helped me become one of the best in America at the beginning. And it was all due to that work ethic and being extremely focused and precise with what I was trying to achieve and do.
I love how you said you can't be great at everything. That's true. You can't. Like you pick something that God gives you a gift on and you follow that, and it's your why, and then you focus on being great at that so you can go long ways. Because if you try to be great at everything, you'll never be great at anything. You'll just be okay at everything.
Right.
So that's my take as well. Since the pandemic hit, we saw a big shift in professional fighting happening, especially with the UFC creating their own fight city in Dubai, right? How can talented fighters break into the market and get noticed through the means of social media or personal branding? You've been there, you do that now. How can talented fighters out there follow that path and get noticed?
I'll tell you my story. When I started and I quit my graphic design job, that's when before then I was never really big on social media. But when I did that, I believe Instagram just came out. So that was like 2013, something around then. And then I said to myself, okay, this is now my life. This is now my profession. I have to fully pursue it from the promotional aspect as well. And one of those promotional aspects was Instagram. And so in beginning, they only offered 15-second clips, video clips at that time. And so when I went to Thailand for that long period of time, it was about 7 months, I just started posting on a daily basis the 15-second clips, and it was just me doing explosive movements, something that looked spectacular or grand to people. And as soon as I started doing that, I started getting gaining followers and a lot of likes and things like that. And that's exactly how I was able to monetize it as well. And now I have sponsorship deals, just basically doing that. So if I can give somebody advice for that, is do exactly what you're doing, what you love, but you have to give people some kind of value. And for me at that time, I wasn't like teaching anybody anything. I wasn't teaching them techniques at that time. Now I do that. Back then it was just me like showing these 15-second clips, and that was value to them, because there wasn't too many people that stood out in that way. You know, you're looking at somebody, a person that's a white person in an Asian market, and he's kicking just as fast and just as explosive as the Thai guys. How is that possible? So of course people are going to have some kind of association with it, and they're going to like it. And so that was my mentality at that time.
Hey, well, listen, it's truly been an honor. I mean, you shared so many gems, from creating your own map to following your intuition to, you know, taking the tough road to overcoming adversity and teaching people how to brand themselves. In the world we live in now, it's about branding yourself, and you just gave them steps to do that. How can the listeners and viewers and followers find you and pay attention to what you're doing?
They can follow me on all social media platforms at Topic Fight, TOPIC Fight. And then they can check out my website, topicfight.com as well.
Listen, it's truly been an honor. You are an inspiration. You're one of the best fighters I've ever seen do. And I've watched some of the video clips and I was like, wow, I was impressed. If I ever have any beef with anybody, I'm calling you to help protect my ass, okay? Because I think I'm tough, but I'm not that tough. But thank you for coming on and sharing your story and being personalized and sharing with the underdogs out there, because you and your family were underdogs and you guys overcame that, and you broke through it, and you changed lives, and you're continuing to do that. Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jason.
Bam. And that concludes another episode here on True Underdog. If you're interested in hearing more, make sure you subscribe at iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the YouTube channel. You can always visit TrueUnderdog.com, subscribe to all of them. Make sure you check out our newest episodes coming out on Mondays and Thursdays. True Underdog, baby. Bam!